Hello, at the international school here in Tetuan. Try to make a quiz for you real quickly, or a video for the quiz over this exciting novel. And I'm going to try to get it uploaded in time for the quiz on Thursday, and so wish me luck. Lots happened in the book, picking up from where we left off with the other novel, and congratulations to all of you for doing a fine job on the quiz, the first quiz. And that this quiz is just over some high points, especially things that will reoccur, if you will, a couple important things that reoccur in the final novel as we travel in the hovercraft to District 13. As it turns out, District 13's hovercraft is the one that picks up everybody after the explosion that concludes the novel. Unfortunately, Joanna and Peeta are left behind, as we find out at the end. And of course, at the end, we realize that District 12 has been razed completely, and most of the 8,000 people didn't survive. When we get back and we're opening up, we find that at the beginning of the novel, when Peeta and she are living in the victory houses, and Hamish is going back to being drunk all the time, that the head peacekeeper is named Cray, and doesn't like Cray all that much. I mean, he lets her get away with a lot of things, you know, the hob, he's at the hob, but he uses his position to enjoy young girls in exchange for food, because I mean everybody in the scene is just always right on the verge of starving, which is why all the poor have to get involved with the Tesserae so that they have a chance to survive from year to year. And so we, as you know from one, but it's repeated in two. A lot of things are repeated in the second book to remind you of things, and so you're reminded that hunting in the woods surrounding District 12 like violates like a dozen laws and is in fact punishable by death, and that so that she and Gale have been violating these laws for many, many, many years and selling all their wares in the district. At any rate, Katniss is very worried. She and Peeta have not been on the closest of terms. They're working on a book together, and he brings her cheesecakes, and at one point says, my gosh, this is the first time we've ever done anything normal with each other. But there is still the tensions over what had happened, although Peeta does apologize to her for getting angry when he realizes that she was not she was doing the showmance, as I said in other places, but she does have a definite connection with Peeta. But President Snow comes to visit before the style team arrives to get her ready for the victory tour that will take them all the way through the districts and then back to 12. And so, and of course, Snow complicates things because he's playing with Katniss, saying he doesn't believe that she really loves Peeta at all, and reminds her, because he claims that he knows about the kiss she shared with Gale, and this makes her realize, well, she's going to have to marry Peeta to even save Gale and other people whom she loves, perhaps in a different way. And Snow smells of roses and blood. And these roses are genetically engineered, we assume. They have an incredible staying power and an overpowering scent. And the blood comes from, I mean, you will eventually find out exactly where the blood comes from. And Finnick will relate how that happens, but I wanted you to realize this is this recurring images of roses and blood. We're surprised, we're not surprised. I mean, Katniss is devastated because we find out we're in a kind of a leap year occasion every 25 years is a quarter quell or quell. And that just, each time something different has happened in 50 years. At the 50-year one, 25 years previously, we learned that that's when Hamish won his, by tricking the game in a way. The axe gets over the side of the last person standing and comes up and hits the thrower of the axe in the forehead. Um, Kind of like right at the end of the world. It's at the end of where the dome is. Um, and we also learn as we're going through that her mother's best friend died at that games, and she was basically the twin sister of Madge's mother, the mayor's um, wife. And this is leading towards Katniss's personality changes, or we want to call maturity. And then she realized that she was just selfish in many ways for getting so angry at her mother, but that anger also drove her into the fields, the woods, to get the money and to help the family survive. So it gets complicated because life's complicated. Now, culinary delights are an area, of course, that I would call the conspicuous consumption of capital, but of those delights, Katniss favors lamb stew with dried plums. And you remember that because this comes back as a kind of a motif that solidifies the relationship between Peeta and her. So you want to remember that. And each of the tributes has to kind of get the victor's talent. And for Katniss, that's she's going to design dresses because Cinna says, "Don't worry, I'll do all the work for you." I mean, but Peeta, is actually takes to portraiture, and he surprises Katniss because what he does paint are numerous pictures of the games. Everything that include everything from the cornucopia to Rue's death. Now, keep that in mind: is that those pictures he does. He also draws pictures of the plants in the so-called family book. So that, like the mother's herbs that can be recognized by other people as a kind of a legacy. Now, just keep that in mind, because that book, the idea of working on that book together, is something that will come up again in the third book. Well, during the victory tour, this victory tour where we begin to see in some greater detail the rumblings of the revolt to come, and Peeta startles everyone by agreeing to give the families of the Rue and Thresh one of the packages that he gets every year, so that they'll have enough food and everything. And we find that, of course, they're grateful for that. But when the kind of that adds to Katniss's fears, because what he's done there is sown a little bit of or re-emphasized how much the people hate capital, when the whole idea of the victory tour is to serve Snow's need that she tried to put the fire out of the revolution. And we see that an old man sings the four-note Mockingjay tune, Rue's Mockingjay tune, before the people all turn, and give that the victory sign from District 12. Everybody's picked up on now. And of course the Mockingjay symbol becomes more ingrained as we move through the book, and the fire catches. And by the end of the book, you learn that the whole place is in revolt. That man is murdered by the old man who did the four-note Mockingjay tune, is killed, and by the by the police, we call them the peacekeepers, and she sees that. And then we know that other places are in revolt as well, or turning in that area. And on the trip, it also, the whole enormity of it brings Peeta and Katniss closer together, and they do share a bed on the Victory Tour because everybody's talking about it on the train, and that serves, of course, their need for everybody to believe they're in love, but it also provides her for some stability. Now, I love the party, the huge party at the Capitol, and you find about the vomitory. This is what I call it conspicuous consumption. People take not a laxative and but a kind of a purgative, with our word is catharsis. If you drink it, you throw up, and that way you can go back and eat a whole bunch more. But one of the other big things, well, I guess actually I got a couple of things confused a little bit there. The big point I wanted to make is that Plutarch, Heavensby, is the new game maker, head game maker, and he dances with her and with Katniss, and he reveals his watch. And the face of the watch at midnight has a disappearing mockingjay on it, like the pin on her dress, on the crystal face of the watch, and it basically said it starts at midnight. And in retrospect, when we find Wiry repeating that tick-tock and tick-tock, and that makes Katniss realize that the contours of the game, the arena themselves, is basically like a clock. And then she thinks, after she has this revelation, if you will, she recalls this moment when Plutarch showed her the watch and may have been hinting to her that there was a conspiracy. And ever since, of course, the Quarter Quell is announced, Katniss eventually realizes that there was a plan, and Peeta and she were largely kept out of the plan because, if one of them got caught or something like this, or there are lots of other reasons that they would be kept out of it. But the other tributes, especially Joanna and Finnick, fight to keep basically Peeta alive, so that she'll continue to go. So that brings up the whole issue of, well, why the hell did 13 wait so long? And the fact that 13, well, I don't want to bring that up right now because that's the whole kind of issue that you're going to be confronted with in the third book. Now, at the conclusion of the Victory Tour at District 12, Katniss goes to the mayor's house to see Madge and whatnot, but the television is on in the mayor's office, and she learns from there that District 8 is indeed in revolt. Later, when her stylist team shows up, she will ask questions and find out, well, there's not a lot of fish there until they get fish, so that probably District 4 is in trouble, and things along those lines. The idea be that the Mockingbird's fame and the fire is spreading. Now, at this particular juncture, before a lot of things hit the fan, Katniss tells Gale about the uprisings in Panem, and the idea is that she's thinking of escaping. But as soon as Gale finds out that others are revolting, he says he refuses to escape and says, "I'll never go in a million years." And in fact, after the whipping of Gale, she decides that she's not leaving either, and that I am basically becoming the Mockingjay. The new Romulus thread, I just love these Roman names. We find that when they come back from the hunting, Gale gets mad, whatever. He goes back with just this turkey he had, and Katniss, when she gets back, realizes that there's something going on in the square by the Hob and whatnot, or the Justice Building, and it's, in fact, Romulus thread has given Gale almost 40 whipping for lashings for having this illegal animal, if you will. And Darius had tried to stop it at 30 and had taken a blow to the head. And then after they finally do stop, because one of the other peacemakers intercedes and say, we always just do 40 for this kind of crime. Gale could have been killed, but he said that he had found the the turkey and killed it with his knife or something along those lines. And so, if he would have had his usual stuff, and he didn't because he was was a little bit angry with Katniss, he then goes back without anything more, and then that probably saved his life. And as soon as that happens, then the new head peacemaker, the electric fence comes on eventually. Romulus, Thread, and company burn down the Hob, and they close the mine for 2 weeks so that everybody's near, should we say, starvation. And the rodents just defile the usual package that comes to them once a month. But I love this one. It's something because it's called, in a sense, crisis economics. That is to say, you have a plan to do these things like sell off government assets, get rid of unions, if you will, cut wages, do away with regular public schools, whatever you want. And then when something gets really terrible, the crisis economics, you impose these kinds of things. And what happens, the example of it is, if you will, as punishment for what they've done, the capital cuts the workers' already, terrible wages, extends the hours in which the miners must work, and sends them into extremely dangerous work sites, so that they're actually making more money off of their work, and they're using this kind of excuse, which is to say that they're punishing Katniss in particular because, of course, she upset Snow's plans, and of course the revolt is beginning. Now, another time when Katniss goes, she meets Bonnie and Twill at the house by the pond, and it's there that Twill and Bonnie say, well, we're going to go to District 12, 13, and she says, wait a minute, we can't go there's nothing there. And I think it's Twill who tells her, well, check out that story. Every time they have the story of District 12, it's the same burning things. They use the same backdrop, and they pretend that someone's there. And so it's the same mockingjay that flies around in there. But she also tells him, and keep this in mind because it'll come up later on, that in fact, before the Dark Days, District 13's principal industry, of course, was the graphite that's used, and then for nuclear development. So that's something to keep in mind when you get to the beginning of Book 3 that helps you understand what happened at District 13. Now, of course, to celebrate the third Quarter Quell, this is the 75th anniversary of the Capitol's victory over the rebels. As a reminder, and that one was that the rebels, that even the strongest among them cannot overcome the power of the Capitol. The male and female tributes will be reaped from the existing pool of victors. Now, I love this reaping and sowing kind of thing, as if you're talking about turning people into commodities, this idea of reaping the people, during the games or otherwise, is sort of like, cutting them down and selling them. And this turns out to be kind of a form of bizarre entertainment that the Hunger Games present to people. And of course, now she meets quite a few of the tributes she had heard about before, like Finnick Odair and company, Joanna Mason. Joanna Mason, who will eventually cut out the tracker thing in Katniss's arm. Katniss thinks she's tried to kill her. And this is all the work that's being done to save her and Peeta. The plan on which she was not let in. And we find also that one of the other ones is the beautiful, beautiful man, Finnick Odair, who won the Hunger Games at the age of 14, and largely because of a trident. He's a sea guy, excellent swimmer, in love with Annie, fellow winner, with the aid of a trident that's delivered by parachute right at the right time. And And at any rate, Mason won the games by pretending she was a weakling. Um, and then, of course, once she had the advantage, she did everybody in. Now, Finnick says, "Oh, I don't need money. I don't get money." He tells Katniss, "You'll be rich beyond your religion." He says, "I don't need money." And he says, "I haven't used it either." And so she says, "Well, what do you get for all the services you provide?" I'm sleeping with all the beautiful women, and he tells Katniss with secrets. That's how people pay him for the pleasure of his company. Keep that in mind, with secrets. This will come into play in a big way in the final book. Now, and in the training center, besides having to get along with these other people, she's told by Haymitch to make allies. And of course, she finds this idea repugnant because that's the way all the winners usually do things, but also because she just doesn't want. Last time she didn't join anybody really, other than Rue. Well, at any rate, for trying to stop Romulus Thread from whipping Gale, Romulus Thread had hit Darius in the head to the ground, and at the training games, Snow she realizes that Snow turned Darius, the young red-headed boy, into an Avox, and it's just again sent there as a warning and a reminder by Snow about his power and his reach. I love the two tributes from District 3, Virus and BT, maybe it's BT. And I love that they're called Nuts and Bolts, and it has to do with, they work with technical equipment. They're like engineers. Unfortunately, Iris will die, and BT was wounded trying to get this coil of very, very special wire from the cornucopia, and he's been cut with a knife. Of course, Katniss eventually comes to realize what the plan is to get out. This is, in fact, a conspiracy, and it's organized by Plutarch and Haymitch, and all the tributes with the help of District 13 to undo these games. Now, remember the other time when it came time for Katniss to perform in front of the game maker, she shot the arrow out of she shot the apple out of the pig's mouth and got a nice score of 11 out of it. This time she hangs a dummy and paints with blood red juice the name Seneca Crane, which gets her a 12. And of course, then I love that one. And of course, Peeta says, Peeta tells him, goes last and tells him he thinks that she's gonna. No way Peeta can overdo this one. And Peter tells Caesar Flickerman that Katniss and he couldn't wait. They loved each other. They didn't want to wait long, and so they got married in the traditional way that they do. It's called the I can't remember the name of it right now, but the man just wears a regular suit. Clothing that he borrows from someone, and the girls usually wear this simple white dress that people have probably used 100 times. But President Snow chooses one of the ones that Cinna, the wedding dress and Katniss has to wear it to the interview with Caesar Flickerman. And Cinna has made a special dress so that when she spins again, it burns away in smoke and flame. And when Katniss raises her arms, there are these white streaks, which appear to be a mockingjay. Now, if you look on the video, or you look up there, you'll find a mockingbirds. We see them every once in a while in Peru, have a white bar on their wings. And this is what she's referring to. And then, in a sense, she becomes the Mockingjay, and this is important for what happens in Book 3 when she agrees to be the Mockingjay for the Revolution. It turns out to be the title of the last book as well. But they couldn't wait, so they went and did. That's what he says. Peeta says, we got married, and we didn't know what was going to happen, but we were going to tell everybody because, well, uh, Peter says that Katniss is pregnant, and of course this really blows everybody's mind, and there's just rioting in the amongst the people. They're just angry, and at that particular time, after the interview session and Peter drops his bomb, all the 24 victors, when they do the anthem, hold hands to stage their own protest over the Quarter Quell. And of course, Snow can't stop the games, but he shuts everything down right after that event, and people are yelling and all these other kinds of things that go on. So they enter the games, pretty much directly after that, um, to get things going. But what they've done is, again, all 24 of them, before they go in and do what they usually do, many of them, Brutus and Arbia, many of the others are in there trying to kill and whatnot. But before she leaves the training area for the launch room, where she will see poor Cinna basically beaten to death while she's standing in the thing. She can't move. Haymitch tells her something important, and that comes up right towards the end of the book when she is ready to use that arrow. And she sees Zenobia, and she's ready to shoot. And then she remembers what it is that Haymitch told her right before she got into the launching area, which is, remember who the enemy is. And she shoots it into the air and takes advantage of the shimmering area that Beatty and Wirus mentioned, where the imperfections in the actual entire, we want to call it containment area. And that wire thing explodes and blows up the power grid, and the vehicle, the hovercraft from District 13, is able to save most of the people left in the arena. Now, and Katniss had looked up to see the wavy squares because she had got up in a tree. She climbed up in a tree and sees the whole area. Sees actually that there isn't much room in this particular arena, and that that the cornucopia is in salt water with 24 rays coming out of it. Of course, they have to swim. She looks up there and sees the wavy things that reveal what they call the chinks in the armor. Now, Peter, of course, had died, basically, and his heart stopped beating because he had walked into these things, into the force field without seeing it, and it stopped his heart, and Finnick saves his life. And there's later on, there's a kind of grim humor throughout here, especially when the cannon goes off, and Finnick says, well, maybe it's for Peter, because he died earlier today. And then, of course, they throw the nuts against it, and it bakes the nuts, and Madge eats them, and we realize that there's a way to have food. But as part of the alliance, they're running away from that kind of toxic nerve gas. Basically, what it is, it blisters, but then it starts having a horrible effect on people, and they basically become paralyzed almost. And Mags is... they see Katniss, I think, is carrying Mags, and she can't do it anymore. And of course, Pete is not up to snuff because, of course, he's just been brought back to life. And Finnick is carrying Peter. Well, poor Katniss is not in the greatest of shape either, and she can no longer carry Mags. And Finnick says, "Look I can't carry you." And she commits suicide by walking into the poison fog that threatens them all. She gives up her life. And this is all part, okay, well, you have to carry Peeta. She's in on the plan. And she's also Pete Finnick's own previous mentor. She's going so that Annie won't have to go. Now, the other thing is after surviving the fog of nerve gas, Katniss also discovers quite by accident, that the salt water that surrounds the cornucopia detoxifies her. It's painful, but it works, and it works to the point where Finnick is floating around in there and is even getting a little feisty. And she says, go back and take care of Peter. And anyway, they do survive. There's the nuts there, the water that they find, and using this, what is it called? Doesn't really matter. Style, I think it is. But at any rate, yeah, I was going to say this. It reminded me of when Wyrus, who's been saved by Joanna, Joanna tries to beat the hell out of Katniss, and Finnick grabs her. Wyrus keeps repeating tick-tock, and as Katniss realizes, that means that she's trying to get the answer across, that the arena functions very much like a clock of sorts, as I said before. And this also makes her think about the dance that she had with Plutarch at the celebration when he showed her the watch with the face of the Mockingjay, excuse me, that disappears, and in retrospect, he may have been hinting to her about the League, if you will. And of course, we know by the end that, in fact, the District 11, District 12 no longer exists. Peter, they couldn't get him or Joanna, and at this particular point, Katniss has gone postal. She attacks Hamish. But something happens just basically right before the team of the tributes puts their plan with the wire into effect. The one that Katniss has to use her noggin to really bring to fruition. I mean, she plan 2. She ties the special wire to one of her arrows and shoots it up into the glimmering area, and it explodes, and she sees stars, and then the blast of the whole thing knocks her completely down. Right at that point, Peeta gives her he's already given her a locket. And this gift is when they're eating oysters, which are not being eaten as an aphrodisiac. There is that joke kind of in the back there, but Peeta gives them, it opens it up and finds a pearl. And Katniss receives a gift of a pearl from Peeta. And that pearl will come back in the 3rd book. So I wanted you to remember that. Okay, we'll do a good job on the quiz, and I'll talk to you again soon enough as I make another video here about the last book. Do a good job and enjoy the reading. Get to those discussion threads as well.